All right, guys. Shabbat Shalom. We are live at the Vine in my dining room. All right. Little jingle for you today. Hopefully, wherever you're at, the weather's working for you. If not, I hope you're in a safe place. Snug as a bug in a rug and all that good stuff. So that being said, Jonathan, if you open some prayer, please.
Yeah, will do. Joe, thank you for this day. Thank you for your Sabbath, for the day of rest. Rest from our works, holy convocation, to meet together, to assemble, to read your word, to understand the scriptures a little better and a little deeper each week. I just thank you so much for this group of people here in person and everybody who's online and everybody who watches in the future, that it's one spirit that we all meet and gather under, and one spirit that teaches. And I just pray that we all have a great conversation, that we enjoy the Sabbath that you established for us since creation, and that we can honor you the best that we can on it, to rest from the works and the personal desires and the wants and all those things, where we can just really focus on you and uplifting the body and growing the kingdom. So I pray things in your son's holy name, Yeshua. Amen.
Amen. Amen. All right. So, guys, we're going to be in John chapter 13, Samuel chapter 8, 2 Samuel chapter 8. We will be in Genesis chapter 49, 50, and Exodus 1 and 2. Is that correct? I remember it all off the top of my head, so praise God, it might be a good day. All right. Anyway, so whoever's reading?
I'm good today.
Okay.
Hey, what chapter was it? I wasn't listening. 13. That's what I thought. That's what I meant. All right. We're going to be starting today in John chapter 13. I have all kinds of voice available, so we should be good. Now, before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart out of this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. During supper, when the devil had already put it into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God, and he was going back to God, rose from supper. He laid aside his outer garments, and taking a bowl, tied it around his waist. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet, and to wipe them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, do you wash my feet?" Jesus answered him, "What I am doing you do not understand. Now," I'm getting called. That's right. Peter said to him, "You shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered him, "If I do not wash your feet, you have no share with me." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head."
Change his mind quick.
Jesus said to him, "The one who has bathed does not need to wash except for his feet, but is completely clean. And you are clean, but not every one of you." For he knew who was to betray him. That was why he said, "Not all of you are clean." When he had washed their feet and put on his outer garments and resumed his place, he said to them, "Do you understand what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example, that you also should do just as I have done to you. Truly, truly, I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. If you know these things, blessed are you if you do them. I am not speaking of all of you. I know whom I have chosen. But the scripture will be fulfilled. He who ate my bread has lifted his heel against me. I am telling you this now, before it takes place, that when it does take place, you may believe that I am he. Truly, truly, I say to you, whoever receives the one I send receives me, and whoever receives me receives the one who sent me." After saying these things, Jesus was troubled in his spirit and testified, "Truly, truly, I say to you, one of you will betray me." The disciples looked at one another, uncertain of whom he spoke. One of his disciples, whom Jesus loved, was reclining at the table at Jesus' side. So Simon Peter motioned to him to ask Jesus of whom who was speaking. So that disciple, leaning back against Jesus, said to him, "Lord, who is it?" Jesus answered, "It is he whom I will give this morsel of bread when I have dipped it." So when he had dipped the morsel he gave it to Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot. Then after he had taken the morsel, Satan entered into him. Jesus said to him, "What you are going to do, do it quickly." Now, no one at the table knew why he said this to him. Some thought that because Judas had the money bag, Jesus was telling him, "Buy what we need for the feast," or that he should give something to the poor. So after receiving the morsel of bread, he immediately went out, and it was night. When he had gone out, Jesus said, "Now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and glorify him at once. Little children, yet a little while I am with you. You will seek me, and just as I said to the Jews, so now I also say to you, where I'm going, you cannot come. A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another, just as I have loved you. You also are to love one another. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, where are you going?" Jesus answered him, "Where I am going, you cannot follow me now, but you will follow afterward." Peter said to him, "Lord, why can I not follow you now? I will lay down my life for you." Jesus answered, "Will you lay down your life for me? Truly, truly, I say to you, the rooster will not crow till you have denied me 3 times.
I know people always make jokes about verse 23, the one whom Jesus loved.
Yeah, I highlighted that one.
But then you look back at verse 1, and it says, he would depart out of the world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. So I was thinking, well, he's saying he loved all of them, but I guess the offer, we put in something extra. I thought that was funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that part on 23, where whom Jesus loved, I have that underlined as well. And the remark doesn't imply for his lack of love for the other disciples, but it indicates a special thing for John.
Or maybe because he was the one writing
it. Yeah, true that. Mm-hmm. True to that.
Mr. Kyle, go ahead, buddy.
Okay, sorry. All right. I just want to get some other perspectives on this. So in verse, back towards the beginning where he's talking about washing his feet and all that. He says, verse 7, you do not know what I'm doing now, but you shall know after this. He's like, no, you're not going to wash my feet. He said, if I don't wash feet, you're not going to have any part with me. He said, well, then not only wash my feet, my hands, my head, whatever. So clearly he didn't understand what was taking place here. And then Yeshua said to him, he made an interesting statement. He who has had a bath does not need to wash, except his feet, but is clean altogether. And you are clean, but not all of you. I've got my own my understanding of this. I'm curious what you guys have to say about the depth of what's being said here. Like not just the literal physical aspect of it, but regarding any spiritual implications or anything else, or just depth to the word. Any further understanding on this particular part here? What say you?
Anybody?
Well, foot washing was one of their cultural things because they wore sandals and obviously they had dusty feet, but I just thought of that plug in there. So this task was usually performed by the lowliest member of the household of washing the feet. Okay. And Peter, with his usual impulsiveness, objected to Yeshua's action of washing his feet. He could not understand the humility of Yeshua. And Yeshua answers that whatever Peter's own expectation may have been, Peter must accept Yeshua in the path that God has chosen for the Messiah to follow, which is also stated in Isaiah 55 and Matthew 16.
Okay. I'm gonna give him my take on it, Kyle, just right off the cuff for what it's worth. I think, he's talking about that not everyone here is going to be clean. I think he's talking about Judas. And, there is a scripture somewhere, I believe it says, blessed are the feet that bring the good news or something like that. So we have him washing everyone's feet. He says, hey, you are not dirty. But it's almost symbolic of the one who's about to betray him is about to literally go and walk and bring the enemy to Yeshua later. And so there's something, I think, to that in saying that you guys, I know you're with me. I'm going to wash your feet. There is a humblingness there for him to do that, like Vicky said, to especially in the position as he says, you've called me master, you've called me teacher, and well, you have. But I'm going to do this. I'm going to do something that typically you're not going to see another teacher doing. You're not going to see another rabbi washing his disciples' feet. You know what I'm saying? There's a humbleness there that he's given them an example of. He says, let the least of you then become the greatest. It isn't the other way around where you walk around like, I'm it. And God's like, no, I love the humble heart. The proud in heart he hates. And so I think there's something in here, and I can't quite flesh it out yet, but I think there is something symbolic here of him washing their feet and maybe being connected to that, what's getting ready to happen with Judas.
God, do you have a new point, or is that your same hand up?
He has.
Well, I have stuff I can add to, but I'd like to just get all y'all's perspectives on that before I do.
Jonathan was out of the room for a second. Could you repeat that real quick for him?
Yeah, the part about the feet washing. So Yeshua says, hang on, I have to back up because I was looking for my next point. Yeshua says in verse 7, you do not know what I'm doing now, but you shall know after this. And then down below, he makes a comment in verse 10. He says, he who has had a bath does not need to wash except his feet, but is clean altogether. And you are clean, but not all of you. So let me, I'll go ahead and say my second part now. But I just like y'all's take on what all this is. Here's the other thing too. They've already been in the room for a little while, and this is something I don't think I've ever heard anybody say. They've already been in the room for a little while. The foot washing happens when you enter the room.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a second foot washing that's taking place. So to me, this just seems like there's a lot more to this that we're not picking up.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that was it.
So what are your
thoughts?
Well, go ahead, Jonathan.
Go ahead, answer your question.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I think when reading through this passage, it's intended to be symbolically strong. He's really trying to convey a message of servants are supposed to serve, and you guys are getting ready to go out, and what you've seen your whole life is rabbi. You've done right in calling me rabbi and teacher and Lord and all that. Yeah, good job. I'm in charge. I'm the big boss. I'm the teacher. But let me give you another side of the story of what your actual expectation is. Like, don't leave here with a big head.
Mm-hmm.
Don't leave here and say, oh, the Jews killed Jesus, so now let's go after him because we're now the new lords and the new teachers. No, you guys need to see that, like, I'm going to let myself be humbled all the way down to the lowest level, and that's where you're going to meet the people.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a two-part there where, like, the feet is the lowest level. That's what touches the ground. That's what's the actual impacts between the man and the world. That's the actual contact point. The hands and the feet. That's why we get those verses. That's what's actually touching the world. And as you go in to touch the world, yeah, you may be clean, you may be bathed, but your constant interaction with the world, you're going to have to touch up on that. You're going to have to constantly go back and redo the feet version of that. You're not going to have to go and get resaved every day. You're not going to, after this moment when I get crucified, don't go and get all depressed and be like, oh, we're all worthless rags. We let our Messiah die. No. Hey, just go back, pick yourself up, dust your feet back off, and then get back on the mission. So I think he's kind of giving them a little bit of a heads up of, I still love you guys. You guys are still good. Walk like a servant. You don't have to walk like the king and the Messiah and all that. You can walk like a servant, and that's going to actually have that impact I want from you. But don't leave here and say, oh, now we're all unclean or we've all messed up, especially Peter. Oh, you denied me 3 times? Hey, get up, wash your feet back off. You know, your body's clean. You've already been bathed. You've already been, you know, baptized in the Spirit, or that's coming up at least. So I think it's just an indicator of he's answering like 7 questions with one action, and he's kind of giving them a bit of a solid path moving forward versus just we're just going to go back to rabbinic Judaism. We're going to go back to the way the system is. Like, no, this system that we're setting up today is going to be forever different and changed. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to even tell you, the world is going to know that you're mine because you love each other. So, you know, washing feet, taking care of each other, dipping the bread, all this stuff. He's like, look, doesn't look like we love each other. Yeah, this is what we're talking about, not that over there with the building.
All right. Thank y'all.
Mm-hmm.
Speculation, you know, but let me do my speculating thing. I don't know. I kind of wonder if there's an authority or a blessing being given here. Like I said, you already have the foot washing that would have happened when everybody come in the door, you know, before they stepped in and sat down to eat and all this other stuff. Like the normal foot washing would have happened. So yeah, I mean, I'm 100% behind the whole idea of humbleness, servant mentality, taking care of one another. You know, nobody's greater than anybody else. But a couple of things. So, well, I guess the first thing is, number one, is it possible that all of the men, including Judas, were given some type of blessing or empowerment or something for the swiftness of their feet to accomplish what it is that they have to accomplish? Whether it be Judas's actions or what the disciples were about to endure, and, you know, from that point up until his crucifixion and up until the point where Yeshua comes and sees them again and tells them, you know, hey, you're about to get the helper. Is this possibly some type of blessing or whatever for swiftness of feet, you know, to carry out what needs to be done? I don't know. Just kind of speculating there. And I had something else, but I kind of drawing a blank right now. So come back to me on that if I think of it.
Okay.
Can I say something?
Sure.
So, sort of with where we what Kyle was talking about, but going ahead. Verse 15, where it says, "For I have given you an example that you also should do just as I have done to you." So the humility of Yeshua is a pattern for his disciples. Instead of aspiring to dominate, they must be eager to serve. And Matthew 20, verses 26 through 28, it says, "It shall not be so among you, but whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be your slave. Even as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." And also 2 more scriptures, or 2 more different chapters. Philippians 2, verses 5 through 8, it says, "Have this mind among yourself, which is yours in Christ Jesus, who though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but made himself nothing, taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men, and being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. And then the last one, First Peter 2. 21, it says, for to this you have been called, because Christ also suffered for you, leaving you an example, so that you might follow in his steps. Talking about feet.
Thank you. Kyle, did you say you remember?
Yeah, just trying to get back to the screen so I can unmute. Sorry. Yeah, so this is Yeshua essentially washing all of their feet. Not them taking turns washing each other's feet at this moment that if I understand correctly, right?
Right.
This is just Yeshua washing their feet.
That's
And so
correct.
Yeshua's feet does not get washed during this. So, just kind of one more thing to lend towards the idea that I was kind of thinking there. And then also, Judas takes the morsel like everybody else, as if to be taking that covenant,
That's
and
right.
then goes and betrays.
Right.
So, yeah.
I wonder if that was part of him falsely taking that bread, because then it says Satan entered him. Yeah, it seems like it was an immediate thing that took place.
Well, I mean, we're all subject to media and TV shows and stuff like that. Like, I don't remember the story reading this way, where it was Jesus dipped it and then gave it to him. I remember it was something. Maybe it's different accounts. Maybe Matthew, Mark, Luke say it differently. But I always thought it was whoever dips in my cup will take. Blah blah blah. It almost sounded like Judas went and did the action. Where here in John, it sounds very much like Jesus was like, "I'm actively going to point you out." Where before it was almost like Judas outed himself. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I'll have to go back and look at the other gospels while we're talking. But in my brain, I remember it where Judas was the one taking, and not that it's important, I guess, but Judas was the one who was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go get the bread and I'm gonna go dip in Jesus' cup," almost like I'm trying to be cool like Jesus. Where there's probably multiple cups on the table. He could have dipped it somewhere else, but it was like almost him outing himself, almost
You
him.
think it was gravy dipped it in? I'm just kidding.
As long as it was white gravy with black pepper.
There you go.
Waffle House.
And by the way, Shabbat Shalom to everybody who's joined us online. This Cleveland. Let's see. Tyler Porter, Shamgar. Who else we got in here? If you're online with us, give us a shout out. Let us know who's online with us. Give us a thumbs up, please, and all that good stuff.
So there was a comment or a question in the comment section that says, had Judas already left at that point?
No.
No, he had not left yet, because at the feet washing, because then they did the cup and the bread and all that stuff afterwards, and it wasn't until during that part that he ends up dipping out, or leaving, excuse me. So yeah, he was there for the foot washing.
So what do you guys think about Kepha, aka Peter? It seems like he seems to be the one guy that kind of pops up in the narrative a lot whenever something's going on. And he's the one that wants to go out and walk on the water. He's the one saying, "I'll die for you." He's the one, motioning and ask if whom he speaks. Is it me? Is it not me? Who is it? It seems to always be Peter. That you see that, I guess, that boldness or that leadership quality of Peter coming out.
Mm-hmm.
But what's funny is after he speaks to Judas and says, "What you do it quickly." It says, "But no one at the table," verse 28, knew why he said this to him. For some were supposing, because Yehuda had the bag, that Yeshua was saying to him, "Buy what you need for the festival," or that he should give somewhat to the poor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's kind of funny how I
They
mean,
were still assuming the best.
right.
Yeah.
It's funny how though they just kind of, they weren't getting it yet.
Mm-hmm.
He just said, one of you's going to betray me. Who is it? Well, the one I dip my bread and give it to. Well, he gives it to Judas. So why wouldn't you think he's
Right.
the guy? You know?
Yeah. So, and I'll let you go real quick. I was looking back through Matthew, and in Matthew 26:25, Judas, who would betray him, answered, "Is it I, Rabbi?" And he said to him, "You have said so." So it's almost like John's giving a really nice, light version of the story, where like
Mhm.
Matthew and Mark, they're like, "No, it was him, and he said it, and he dipped the stuff, and then you, is it I? Oh, you said it." You know what I mean? Like you came out and said it with your own words. Where John seems to be kind of like, well, then we all didn't know, and then he went to go buy some stuff, maybe, and then whatever stuff. Then things happen, like because I just said maybe I haven't read John as much as I've read the other Gospels, but I'm like I remember the story a lot differently. Where Jesus was like, "Hey, if you dip your bread in my cup, then you're gonna be the one." And then Judas like, "Is it I, Lord?" Wink, and Jesus was like, "Duh, you said it." You know, we're like in John, it's a little more soap opera light fluffy version of it. You know, maybe John's being a little more gentle. He's like, all right, you know what, I'm writing this gospel a little bit later now. You know, our feelings have had a chance to mature. I'll give you a little bit of the behind the scenes of what we were really thinking. You know, oh yeah, he did it, but we didn't know then, so let me be honest about it. Maybe you know, just kind of curious to see if that played any factor for you guys. Miss Vicky.
So I wanted to go on 22 and then I'll go on 26 and 27. So 22, it says the disciples looked at one another, uncertain of whom he spoke. So uncertain, Judas had hidden his betrayal so carefully that the other disciples had no inkling of it. And each one began to fear that he might be the weakling. So Judas too mouthed the question, but the disciples apparently did not hear Yeshua's response. And then 26, you know, talking about the morsel of the bread, where it says, Jesus answered, "It is he to whom I will give this morsel of bread when I have dipped it." So when he had dipped the morsel, he gave it to Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot. And so this morsel of bread was apparently a favor reserved for a guest of honor. And then 27, it says, then after he had taken the morsel, Satan entered into him. And that part where Satan entered into him, Judas's refusal to respond to Yeshua's appeal opened up his heart to the control of Satan. And he was still a responsible agent, but had surrendered to the dominion of evil. And when you go down to the end of that scripture, 27, it says, so what are you going to do? Do quickly, and do quickly. Yeshua is still in control of the timetable and makes no further effort to check Judas on his fateful way.
I just think if he says something like that, and I'm thinking me, I want to be watching the whole time because that's just how my brain is. So
The people watcher?
yeah, because you say that, okay, or who is it? And do they just forget? Do they stop paying attention?
Yeah, you guys seen Judas? It's been a little while. I mean, it is the middle of the night. What is he going to buy in the middle of? Isn't everything closed? Isn't everybody at home doing Passover? And you're like, no, the Jews have theirs tomorrow. We're still good. But you know, other than that, but yeah, no, I think it's kind of interesting when you see Yeshua praying over Peter. He's like, oh, I've prayed for you. Satan was looking to sift you. You was about to get the full shebang, but I prayed for you. And it almost sounds like when the people were surrounded by Yeshua, I'm not gonna say it was like force field, but he supernaturally took care of them. Like, you're my 12, you guys are kind of good. Where with Judas, whatever this interaction was kind of like, I'm lifting the veil of holiness off of you. Like you've been able to enjoy the fruits and the benefits of being one of mine. When you're one of my close ones, I breathe the spirit on you, and I move, you move, just like that. There's going to be a lot of, blessings bestowed on you just automatically. It's just built into the system. Where then it seems like whatever this little transaction thing was, but Peter, I'm praying for you. You're good. But it was about to get bad. Judas was like, and then Satan entered. It was almost like Yeshua was still in charge in that moment. It wasn't like, Satan had to sit there on the background and wait. When can I have Judas? I know you. I know I'm going to get him. I know I'm going to, he's going to betray you. I know you got to die. Because, the whole system had to happen the way it was supposed to happen. But it was almost like Satan was like, I still am not in control of this. I can't have Judas until you determine. Because why wouldn't you give him over earlier? Like, why wait until this specific moment of, now here's the bread. I release you from my care. Now go and do what you have to do. And as he left, you know, then it's like then all the bad stuff started happening. Then he was an iffy character before then,
Right.
but then now he's like, and because Yeshua allowed it, Satan was able to enter him. Just like how
Yeah.
Yeshua didn't allow him to come over with Peter. I wonder if Yeshua was actually in charge of all of that, and we kind of get the Passion of the Christ story of like, oh no, Judas went off and it's a secret and he's gonna kiss me. I'm gonna have no idea. He was like, no, I know exactly what happened. I lifted a little bit of my glory off of him, and Satan did what he had to do, and Judas fell for it, like a human would do in that scenario.
I wonder. It kind of seems to me like I know that was kind of it was supposed to happen that way, right? Like that's the way it was. That's the way it was going to happen all along. But it's almost like it was waiting to the very last minute for almost for the purpose of grace, mercy. You know, hey, if this is still your heart at this time, then you know, all right, I'm going to turn you over to it, kind of thing. But I'm gonna hold on to you to the very last second.
Yeah, it just seems like there's a lot there that maybe we didn't. It's hard to go back and relook at stuff that you've heard 100 times, because then once you've heard it a certain amount of times, like reading Revelation, you're like, oh, this is what happened. This is the Antichrist. This is how everything went down. You know, it's all left behind stuff. And then you're like, you go back and reread, you're like, it's not exactly what that's saying. You know, reading this again today and this week has been like, maybe some more stuff going on there. Maybe, you know, whenever you see Yeshua getting ready to get arrested, he's like, man, did you not know I was in charge the whole time? Like, Judas did not surprise me. His little escapade, he's like, oh, you know, I used my little heaven eyes. I saw what happened.
But even with all that, if he had a chance to turn at the last second, it had to happen somehow, right? So he already knew nothing was going to change.
Right.
Right. So this was something I feel like was already in the heart of Judas to begin with. So it wasn't like he kind of had some mixed feelings and then Satan entered and he went and told on Jesus, or, you know, got the whole thing going with the Pharisees and Sadducees. You know, it says here about the scripture being fulfilled in 18, says, I do not speak concerning all of you. I know whom I have chosen, but that the scripture might be filled. He who eats bread with me has lifted up his heel against me. Now, Judas isn't the only one eating bread with him. I think that's why they're not all getting it.
Right.
You know, we get the story that he dips the bread, hands it to him, but it's not like the other guys aren't eating it. You know, I'm sure they're eating the bread too. And that's why when he looks at Judas, he got to go, hey, man, whatever you got to do, go do it quickly. Get it done.
Yep.
And then it says Satan entered into him. So do I think this is called about full possession, like Satan's puppeting him? No, I don't think so. But I think there's a full influence from Hasatan, the adversary, so that when he goes to the Pharisees and Sadducees, it won't be the words of him that's speaking. It will be the words of the adversary speaking through him and giving him the words to say.
So was it kind of like Yeshua had a covering of protection over Judas, and at that time, boom, he pulled it away?
Yeah. Well, see, the thing is here's the thing. This is what I'm convinced of. Satan can't do that to anyone unless, one, if they're a willing participant and are worshiping him, sure. People who are following y'all, no. It's just like with Job. He's like, of course he blesses you and does all these things. He goes, let me get a hold of him and he'll curse your name. God's like, no, he doesn't, because I already know the heart of Job. So, but he says, Satan's telling, the adversary's telling God, he's like, hey, but you have him off limits. I can't even cause a lily to die on the ground, and you blessing him left and right. So I do believe that when it comes to this, ultimately the adversary works for the Father in all things, and he just can't have free will over someone unless that person's given him free will over them. That's my 2 shekels an opinion on that.
Doesn't it say in Revelation that the names in the book of life were written before everything was laid down? Something to that effect. So that would have already. He already knew it was going to happen, of course. But
yeah. So with that, and again, I'm not saying that I'm right. Just the opinion I've always taken is that all people are destined to go to be with the Father. He didn't create any humans to go to heaven. He didn't create any humans like, oh, great, I'm creating you. Your job it's not being impossible for you to make it to the kingdom. I think all people are born angled toward kingdom, and then through their life and their actions, they choose to leave. And I think that's where we get like the terms blotted out, or, no one can pluck you from my hand, but you can jump off. your name is written in the book, but I can't blot it out. Like, so then I think that's going to be the sad part is like, it's like a giant redacted document. It's a ton of words and all you see is black marker everywhere. Like, nope, he didn't make it. He didn't make it. He didn't make it. He didn't make it.
Okay.
Because otherwise then you get into like that tulip and that totally depraved and all that stuff where you're like, you're born a sinner, destined for hell. And then you just hope that God one day magically like comes into your life. And if it wasn't for him and his grace, and you would never even know about it, that would not put us in a position of, that doesn't really give you real options. If you were born into a Satanist household and all you heard was Satanist stuff, you're like, oh, okay, well, that guy's just going to hell, the end. And then they're irredeemable, essentially. And God's like, no, all people, I die that all men might be saved. So all men have a chance, have an opportunity. I think our world kind of gives that weird, like, well, you have to try to find your way to the book. He's like, no. You're a human. You're created in my image. You're in the book. You could just be dumb enough where I have to one day and go, sad day. Another one gone.
Yeah.
Interesting way to put it.
Yeah. I mean, people's, when we look at the way people allow their emotions to be led by, their heart to be led by their emotions. I mean, I can go back to the story when Yeshua said, you have to drink my blood and eat my flesh. And everybody rolled out but the 12. And these are people who experienced the miracles, the people who experienced probably the best sermons you've ever heard in your life and teachings on the Bible, you know what I'm saying, on the scriptures. And these are the same people that because they're not getting it in their heart, they're like, yeah, peace out. So the scary part is where we connect with that emotion in our heart and what's going on inside of us. And you look at Judas, it's one thing to say, well, shame on you, but could that have been any of us at that moment? Could that have been any of us at that time feeling whatever he was feeling? And some believe, and I like to get everybody's who would like to comment on this, some believe that Judas, what he was actually trying to do was actually bring about the destruction of Rome and to put Yeshua as king over all of Israel. And so he was actually in his own way trying to promote. He's like, if I go to Pharisees and enforce the hand, then I'm going to force Yeshua to have to show who he is. Because even Yeshua, when he's standing before Pilate, and Pilate's like, hey, don't you have anything to say? Don't you have the power to do blah, blah, blah? Then what does Yeshua say? Man, you ain't got no power over me. I'll call down 12 legions of angels right now and clean this place up. But I don't do my will, I do my Father's will. Right. So when we go into and we see this, I wonder if there's any truth to that at all. If anybody has any comment on that, I'd love to hear it. But I've heard that before, that what he was actually trying to do wasn't that he was anti-Yeshua, but he was anti what was happening with Rome and everything else, and wanted to put him in a place of being a king, being a power.
What's that statement? The path to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah.
Like
The road to hell, yeah.
Yeah, I've kind of heard that before as well. It's like trying to force the issue,
Yeah.
Trying to speed up the process, and cool, I get it. We're eating dinner. It's the Passover, yada yada yada. But come on, let's speed this up. I'm tired of being under these circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see the Pharisees mock another feast. So let's have you as king before they can celebrate their Passover. I don't know. I've heard that idea. I don't know, but I'm okay with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think I keep looking at why Yeshua would even have said, "What you got to do it quickly." It wasn't like, "Hey, you know what? Let's go through litigation. Let's go through the legal system. Let's take about a year, and around next Passover, I'll finally allow you to have me." He was like, Yeshua already knew this is like an ASAP thing. This literally, like, I think he was telling Judas, like, actually, literally, go hurry up. Like, I've got to go pray tonight. He's like, I'm going to keep the biblical feast. I'm never going to break God's law. You call me Jesus, changer of the law, who nailed it to the cross. He's like, but I'm clearly not. And I'm showing you I'm not. This the last human thing I did on earth was have Passover. And then I tell you, I'm going to do this again with you guys one day, but not now. But one day we're all going to do it again. So I'm not going to do away with it because we have to do it again. But even in that conversation, Judas, hurry up. Like, I think there was literally some expedience behind it. I'm going to leave here. I'm going to go pray. I'm going to go have a tough moment. My boys are going to leave me hanging. Oh, well, it's a sad day, but you guys are in your flesh, and I get it. And then I'm going to be in prison tonight in some high priest house prison. And then I'm gonna wake up in the morning and it's gonna be time to go. It's literally game time. And you know, with Yeshua after that prayer and he's like, no, this cup's not gonna pass. This is my will. This is the way it has to go. You know, you can see he was really locked in. Like he said, he's before the high priest, Caiaphas. Thank you. Ooh, that was not coming to my head at all. I was thinking like Kephalon or something, or cellophane or whatever word I was thinking of. But he's in front of Caiaphas and he's like, you know, well, what do you have to say? Silent. No, you got to tell me why are you even here? What are they accusing you of? Silent. I adjure you. He's like, okay, that's proper protocol. I will respond to that because when a high priest adjures you, you must speak in that moment. There's no pleading the fifth. And Yeshua replies, and they have this whole conversation. But you can see after this Passover, this was that last like calm, relaxed. You know, I mean, Yeshua never lost control or anything. He never blew up and started yelling at people. But this was his last good moment, and I think that's why he was kind of like, Judas, just hurry up. Let's get this thing going. Like, I already have to deal with all this. There's a lot, and we have to get this done by tomorrow evening. You know what I mean? You go from free man eating Passover to on the cross within what 24 hours? Or am I? I mean that's it, right? The Jews Passover was the next day, if I remember correctly. I think it said it was the day prior. They had it on Wednesday. Yeshua did it Tuesday night. They did it Wednesday night. Regardless,
Yeah.
It all had to happen ASAP. And I think that's part of why he said that. You know, I've always kind of wondered where he was like, just hurry up and get out of my face. You know, whatever you got to do, just go do it. You know what I mean? Like almost like I'm dismissing you. But I wonder if there was a little bit of, I'm on a timetable. Let's go. And once I dip this bread, it's a game time. We're in motion. It was kind of the same thing with the Passover with Egypt. As soon as they ate that lamb, what did God tell them? Gird your loins, have your staff in your hand. It's game time. If you're eating this Passover, any minute now, God's going to show up in a mighty way, and some big stuff's about to happen. And I think this is that same thing. It's like as soon as Passover hit, straight focus mission all the way until death, burial, resurrection.
Well, I think it's interesting in 36 how, you know, this whole time Yeshua is always tells what he's going to do beforehand. And when he says, where I go, you cannot follow me, but you will follow me later. And how he's, you know, dies and all that.
Well, and I wonder too, because he's talking to Peter in that moment. I wonder if he's like, oh yeah, where I'm about to go. Like, I wonder if there was like a current fulfillment and then the future one. The future one, I think, is a little like, I think on the nose, where it's like, oh, I'm going to heaven, I'm going to be with the Father. You're going to go with me and be with the Father. But also in that moment, I'm getting ready to go get in prison and getting arrested. Where I'm going, you're not going to go, but you will follow me. You will be arrested. You will be in prison. You will be hung on a cross. You'll be upside down. You don't know that yet, but you know, I wonder if he was also kind of giving him a short-term fulfillment and then a future long-term spiritual version of it, where he's like, oh, no, I'm about to get arrested and you're not going to follow me. You're going to deny me. You're not even going to try to join in with me. So you know, and then we're going to have a talk and you're going to, you know, we'll figure it all out.
Yeah.
For the ride.
Real quick, Shabbat Shalom, country kid. Good to see you on. We got Jay, Shabbat Shalom from Australia. All right, Mike. Good to have you on. Appreciate you being with us. Yep. And also, I want to say this, that, you know, again, I can appreciate Simon Kefa, Peter. I can appreciate his zeal. I really can. I mean, he's like, look, man, it's like, I think he's out of all the guys, I call him a redneck dude. Like, he's the one, hey, hold my pint. You know, he's going to go walk on water. He's going to do all these things. I'll die for you. I'll pull a sword. I'll cut this dude's ear off. I'll do whatever it takes. And I know that Yeshua sees that as well. And we have, I believe it's in Luke. I believe Luke actually goes in a little bit more detail with that, where, you know, here he says, hey, you're going to deny me 3 times before the rooster crows, right? I think it's in Luke. It goes a little bit more deeper into that. You know, with him saying, "Hey, Satan has actually asked for you." I mean, he's actually asked to sift you like wheat, man. But I'm praying for you that you won't fail. But this is what's going to happen. It's almost kind of like you almost have that, yeah. Oh.
You'll fail the little test. I'll fail you from the big test. Right.
So, I think what you're saying earlier, Jonathan. I think this is a layered message to them. Because they're still, you know, at this point, they're not getting, and I get it. they truly recognize, and that's why I was saying earlier when the other 70 splits, when Yeshua looks at them and says, "Oh, you want to go too?" And Peter's the one again that steps up and goes, "Who else has the words of life but you?
Mhm.
We trust you. We believe who you are. We know who you are." You know, and I think that's why there's such a fervent zeal here for the Messiah, and he's not getting it because he's saying, you know, when he says, "Hey, I'm going to have to die," and he's like, "Oh no, not be, you know, that can't be." And he rebukes Yeshua. Yeshua rebukes him back and goes, "Hey, get behind me, Satan." And he wasn't calling him Satan, the actual entity. What he was saying is that word adversary, get behind me, you adversary. Because if you're not for me, you're against me. And so that's where I think, you know, we see this part in here, you know, and he's not understanding because not only are you not going to the cross with me, okay, not only are you not going to Sheol with me, not only are you not going to have to go through all that and then be resurrected and come back out of the tomb with me, and you're not going to be with me when everybody watches me go back up. Where I am going overall, you can't go with me. And this is what Peter's not understanding, because in 36, he says, Simon Kepha said to him, "Master, where are you going?" "What do you mean you're going?" "Oh, man, we got the festival. We got Pesach. I mean, what's happening here?" Yeshua answered him, "Where I'm going, you are unable to follow me now.
Yeah, exactly.
But afterwards you shall follow me." And I think that part where it says follow me, he means, hey, I've got to do what I got to do, but afterwards you're going to continue to follow me. And that's where I think when Yeshua shows back up on the shoreline with him and they have some fish and chips for breakfast that morning, and in Yeshua we see restore Peter back to who he needs to be. He says, "You're going to mess up." That's why I think it tells him here, you're going to mess up. Yeah, you're going to deny me 3 times. The rooster's going to crow. You're going to feel like, you know, the lowest person on earth, probably next to Judas. But you will follow me. You will be a part of what I have. And that's why I think I love that story again. And I always refer back to that story of how Yeshua restores him. He doesn't give him the riot act. He doesn't yell at him. He doesn't pull out scrolls and start going, you know, left and right. He says, "No, hey, do you love me? I need to hear this. I know you do, but I need you to say it 3 times. Yes. Well, then go feed my sheep." And so that's a beautiful story of seeing that, even though we know the story ahead of time, we have, you know, we get to see all this played out. It's cool to know that Yeshua already had a plan for Kepha, for Peter later, to restore him so that he can go and do what the Father needed him to do. All right. Anything else in John chapter 13?
I have 2 points, but one short one here is in verse 30. After receiving the morsel of bread, and talking about Judas, he immediately went out, and it was night. I always try to look for those little timetable, date, time, skyline indicators, because, you know, sometimes we kind of forget, you know, like, okay, Passover is an evening, or, well, twilight is what the scripture says. So, I mean, it's a little bit past evening, like right when you can see the first stars, right? Not when the sun's going down, but when it's starting to get dark, like it's almost blackout. That's what twilight is. So you know that Yeshua didn't break the rules. He didn't start at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was still, you know, sundown. It was still dusk. It was night. It was dark. They started at dark. It's been some time. It's nighttime, you know. And I love that we're getting some of these timetable indicators. One, it helps you with some calendar stuff. It helps you with some, you know, chain of events of, okay, it was nighttime. So then when he went to go pray, then it was really nighttime. You know, we're talking, you know, after midnight probably. And we're getting a little bit of an idea of, okay, they're starting the Passover meal. They're doing everything according to scripture. Now he's headed out at night. You know, it's not a day. It's not they're not getting an indicator of this is the next day. It was just saying this was still night. It was still that evening that they're out there doing all this stuff. And while Yeshua was praying and getting close to the Father, Judas is out getting closer to Satan, you know, in his message and his authority. And so there's like these two rivaling factions. Again, kind of like our video in Jubilees where you see Mastema and Moses. You know what I mean? You're like, oh man, we're gonna try to come after you. We're gonna get that dude. We're gonna get the dude. If we can kill the dude, then the story ends. And Mastema / Satan is in this story now. Like, hey, if we can kill Jesus, I mean, we can kill Yeshua, right? Right? Looking around the demons. I mean, am I right here? We have a chance to get him. And then God's like, oh boy. We're doing this again. Do you remember Moses? Do you remember the last time we did Passover and you tried to fight me? Now we're at Passover again, 2,000 plus years later. we're really gonna go back and do this? Remember last time I threw water on your whole army and all that situation, and it didn't work out for you? You know it's gonna happen again, right? Except for this time, I'm taking the keys. When Yeshua comes back, he's getting the keys to death and the grave. You don't even have the keys to your own house anymore. I'll let you live a little bit, but this time you went one step too far. This is my own son. Yeah, he's gonna take the keys, and now you don't have a house. He didn't have a house because Yeshua said, I have no place to lay my head, and now Satan's like, I don't even have the keys to my own house. I can look at it. Man, I remember I used to live over there. Too bad I can't get in. I don't even have the keys. So it's a real interesting, like, kind of back and forth, these spiritual battles where the humans are thinking, Peter's like, yeah, man, I'm in here. I've got a sword. And Yeshua was like, man, if you only knew the real behind the scenes, greatest force of good, greatest force of darkness are trying to battle each other. And darkness is going to lose every single time. But I think there's a real cool behind the scenes kind of comic book, version of that story that would be fun to like watch play out.
Mm-hmm.
If any of you guys seen that play, The Thorn, they kind of went into that a little bit of like that back and forth between him and Judas getting taken over or whatever, and like how Satan's like behind the scenes puppeteering stuff and making everything happen, and then God's just like, no, dude, thumb on you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes you wonder too if the enemy didn't fully understand why Yeshua was there.
Mm.
Because if he was, I would have done everything in my power to protect and not let him die.
Right.
Seriously, it would have been the opposite. You know what I'm saying? So it's like if I knew that what was getting ready to happen on the cross and how this atonement was going to take place for the entire world, how the keys of death, hell, and the grave are going to be taken back when Yeshua shows up in Sheol, all these things, all these events, that he was going to be the kinsman redeemer. If I knew all these things, and I know ultimately the adversary works for the Father, but it makes me wonder if he truly knew or if he truly thought he was getting rid of him, by going to the cross and all that stuff. So I don't know.
It's probably his only opportunity. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing. And he's the enemy. And clearly, if he was smart enough, he would not be the enemy. He would still be in the kingdom serving the Father. So there's something not 100% moving and grooving in the brain process. But yeah, I wonder if he was just like, I don't have any other options. I mean, his son is on the earth and he's a human. I know what I can do to humans. So I'm just going to treat him like I would treat any other human, a Moses, a Noah, whoever. Just attack the beans out of him and see what happens. Because you can't go attack God. He can't go throw a laser beam at God. He's like, that didn't work. I can't try to take over. That didn't work. I got thrown down like lightning. So not doing that again. Well, the human version of God might have a chance. I don't know. I think maybe he was just, pulling at straws and saying, oh, did you ever try to attack a human God? Maybe. Does it work? Well, maybe God the Father will be so angry that he'll pardon me and then tell me, okay, if you don't kill my son, I'll give you your place back. Who knows what he was thinking, but not smart. But yeah, I agree with you. I was like, hey, keep him around forever.
Yeah.
The only last part that I was going to bring up, 38. Truly, truly, I say to you, before the rooster crows, you have denied me 3 times. But right before that, he says, will you lay down your life for me? So, Peter's having that kind of emboldened talk. I'm not going to deny it. I'm going to do this. And I'm going to pull the sword out. And ain't nobody going to do it. And then he's like, okay, will you lay down your life? Because he's saying, where I'm going, you're not going to want to go. And I think that's why I said that's that dual kind of conversation.
Yeah, because you easily could have been right next to him instead of one of the other guys.
Crosses.
Yeah.
It could have been Peter and John right there, and instead it was like everybody else was like, who? Jesus, what? I ain't doing that. That's crazy.
I tell you, woman, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Right. I don't know him. I didn't even know that name was even a real name. I can't even. How do you spell that?
Every time I think of that story, though, and the other accounts of it, I think of it being, I always think of Old English or British and seeing some native going, it was you. I saw you with him. I'll tell you a liar. I don't know this man. So, anyway, for whatever reason, it plays out in my head like Charles Dickinson or something, like Oliver Twist or, some old English movie. Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's that part where he was like, I'm getting ready to actually die. He's like, are you willing to lay down your life? And Peter's like, yeah. I mean, kind of. What are you talking about? Like, what do you mean, like dead? Like today? No, I mean, I'm willing to go through some hardship. You want me to be? I mean, I saw them hit you with that stick and the cat of nine. So that's not for me. I don't know how you dealt with that. So, I do wonder if there was a little bit of like him saying, you're not going to go with me on this mission, but there will be a time when you get it and you will follow in my footsteps. And you're gonna know why I have the heart that I have. You don't have it today. You're on the path. You're on your path of sanctification. You're on your path to Holy Spirit. 50 days, 60, 70, 80 days, however many days. I'm gonna pour out the Spirit. You're gonna preach a bomb sermon. A bunch of people are gonna get saved. You're gonna start to understand. You're gonna understand the heart of the Father, and you're gonna see people the way I see people, and you'll gladly jump on that cross because you know that you're not gonna have anything else other than the mission and following God's will.
Very good. Yeah. Very good. Anything else before we head over to 2 Samuel chapter 8? Oh, I did want to say this one thing, and I'm sure a lot of you guys online have heard this before. For the sake of this being recorded and someone down the road who's never heard this before, and this has been brought to our attention many times, and I've read multiple teachings on this, that the rooster that's crowing was not an actual rooster. So when you're within the area of the temple, you can't have unclean animals around that area. And so it was a what's the right word, Jonathan? I'm trying to think. It was a word that they used for one of the priests in the temple. So when they would go through the different shiftings or the changes of the guard, literally in the temple, that they would call that the rooster crowing. And so basically, it was either a changing of the shift in the priesthood, from one job to, I don't know how, I'm not saying it right. I'm killing it right now. But anyway, it was a noise that they would make within the temple. It was either a time of announcing, hey, it's now the 3rd hour, now it's the 6th hour, now it's the 9th hour, that they would make an announcement somehow. I guess maybe it was a blast of a shofar or something. So they came up with the nickname, the rooster crow. And so it wasn't a physical animal that was doing the crowing. It was during that midnight or during those early mornings or late night of when everything was going down with Yeshua. It was something that the priesthood would do. Yeah. Changing of the guard time. Yeah. Okay. So, and I probably murdered that whole explanation of that. But yeah, I know a lot of you guys get that. But if you've never looked it up, just do a quick Google search on that, and it'll explain it a lot better than what I just did. But it wasn't a physical animal. No. I like that. Miss Cleveland said that. She said Peter was no chicken.
Yeah.
Hey, Miss Karen C. Shabbat Shalom. Good to see you. So, but yeah, just do a quick Google search on that about what the rooster was at that time, and you'll probably not find the same teachings of it was not a physical animal within the temple area. So, all right, let's head over to 2 Samuel. Why can't I be number 1? 2 Samuel chapter 8.
Peter with no chickens.
Yeah, I just put that up there.
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
All right. You guys ready? 2 Samuel chapter 8.
2 Samuel chapter 8. After this, David defeated the Philistines and subdued them. And David took Metheg Ammah out of the hand of the Philistines and he defeated Moab, and he measured them with a line, making them lie down on the ground. 2 lines he measured to be put to death, and 1 full line to be spared. And the Moabites became servants to David and brought tribute. David also defeated Hadadezer, the son of Rehob, king of Zobah, and he went to restore his power at the river Euphrates. And David took from him 1,700 horsemen and 20,000 foot soldiers. And David hamstrung all the chariot horses, but left enough for 100 chariots. And when the Syrians of Damascus came to help Hadadezer, king of Zobah, David struck down 22,000 men of the Syrians. Then David put garrisons in Aram and Damascus, and the Syrians became servants to David and brought tribute, and the Lord gave victory to David wherever he went. And David took the shields of gold that were carried by the servants of Hadadezer and brought them to Jerusalem, and from Betah, and from Barothai, cities of Hadadezer. King David took very much bronze. Then Toi, king of Hamath, heard that David had defeated the whole armies of Hadadezer. Toi sent his son Joram to King David to ask about his health and to bless him because he had fought against Hadadezer and defeated him, for Hadadezer had often been at war with Toi. And Joram brought with him articles of silver and gold and bronze. These also King David dedicated to the Lord, together with the silver and gold that he dedicated from all the nations he subdued, from Edom, Moab, the Amorites, the Philistines, Amalek, and from the spoil of Hadadezer, the son of Rehob, king of Zobah. And David made a name for himself when he returned from striking down 18,000 Edomites in the valley of Salt. Then he put garrisons in Edom. Throughout all Edom, he put garrisons, and all the Edomites became David's servants, and the Lord gave victory to David wherever he went. So David reigned over all Israel, and David administered justice and equity to all his people. Joab, the son of Zeruiah, was over the army, and Jehoshaphat, the son of Ahilud, was recorder. And Zadok, the son of Ahitub, and Ahimelech, the son of Abiathar, were priests, and Seraiah was secretary, and Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, was over the Cherethites and the Pelethites, and David's sons were priests. All right, they was killing me with the names today. Hadadezer.
So David doing what he did best, killing a lot of people.
Yeah. I'm getting you. Everybody get in line.
And the line up, even the horses.
Yeah. When he says hamstrung, does that mean he just like damaged them so they couldn't run anymore, or did he kill them?
Yeah, what does hamstring mean? I don't know.
Because I know what my hamstrings are. You mess with my hamstrings, I'm gonna be struggling.
Yeah, so what we're seeing here with David is definitely establishing himself as the king.
Hmm.
You know, when we read earlier, where was it at? It says that David was king over all of Israel. I should have highlighted that one.
24.
24.
Chapter 7, verse 24.
Crippled by cutting their hamstrings.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Person or animal by severely restrict the efficiency or effectiveness.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Mm. So he named them and then killed them.
Yeah. Well, he didn't have to kill them. He just made him. It says, where was that at? Where?
I was thinking of much.
And David captured from him 1,700 horsemen and 20,000 foot soldiers, and David destroyed all the chariots, but he left of them 100 chariots. And the Arameans in Damascus came to help Hadazer, sovereign of Sobath, and David struck 22,000 of the Arameans. Then where was it? Where yours says he hamstrung them? I don't know. In 4, mine doesn't say that.
And David hamstrung the chariot horses, but reserved enough of them for 100 chariots.
All mine says he destroyed all the chariots.
Probably should get a better version.
Well, one thing's for sure, he's definitely setting the tone that I am the king of Israel. And all you guys who are against me and not for me, we're going to take care of business. You know, so here's the deal. In the land, all the way up to the time of David, we know from the time of Joshua when they're going into the land. Everything kind of starts off okay. Everyone's kind of doing what they're supposed to do. Then it kind of goes sideways.
Right.
And now we're making covenant with people we're not supposed to make covenants with. We're just poor and lonely people, so you mind if we hang with you? Sure, come on in. Oh, we really were the guys next door, but thank you for giving us,
Right.
a place to live. But we see it get so bad at one point that instead of the Levites doing their temple practices or being what Levi priests are supposed to be, now they're for hire. You got one of the guys bragging about it. Hey guys, guess what? I got a Levi for hire right now. You want to see him? You want to see him right there? And it keeps getting worse and worse and worse. So we know that the situation in the lands isn't getting any better.
Mm-hmm.
And you have all these other sovereigns who are coming into power, who are been in power through the lineage of the others. And now because it's basically David's playing cleanup.
Right.
Like this is all the leftover stuff that should have not been here. And now I'm going to go through, and now as king, I'm going to start cleaning this place up.
Right.
I know who you are. I know what's happening with you. So yes, we're going to come and we're going to take care of business. And we know David wasn't doing anything outside the. All right, thank you. So we know that David was not doing anything outside the Father's will because it says the hand of God was with him everywhere he went into battle. He's like, hey, that's my boy David. As a matter of fact, I'm going to send you out, and we're going to cleanse this land. We're going to take care of what should have been taken care of to begin with. And so I think that's what we're seeing here a little bit in this story is David's now having to play catch up where it should have already been done to begin with.
Is there any significance in verse 7 when he said he took the shields of gold, and then thinking Solomon later on had the shields of gold and the house and he built.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if there's any.
I think he was just I'm gonna take care of business, like Joe was saying. You're going to go through the process of cleaning up. He's the same mission was there from original. Go into Israel, subdue the land, take out the giants and all that stuff. It's yours. Like it's the same story. So David's just reading through the scriptures and what are we doing? Let's go do the stuff. And I think just along the way, he's like, well, let's take the spoils. And that's really all
which is normal for that. Unless the Father says put them under the ban, but don't take anything from them.
Right.
Or don't bring anything back with you.
And there probably was a little bit of, to that point, I wonder if this was Israel gold. Like this was stuff that they found there. So really it belonged back to Israel. The enemies had it and they were using it, but it's actually
not
yours.
only that, but from a financial standpoint, you're actually helping to cripple their economics of the said sovereigns that you're defeating.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I'm taking all your silver, your gold, your copper, now you don't have copper to build armor. I mean, copper really wasn't wasn't worth a whole lot money wise, but they used it for building things and making things. It was a soft metal to work with, easy metal to work with back then. So if I'm going to take all your supplies and your wealth, it's going to be very hard for you to all of a sudden go, well, I've got all this gold. I'll just hire mercenaries from up north and they'll come down and we're going to take your spoils. And I agree with you, Jonathan. It was probably gold that belonged to them, to Israel anyway. But it's smart war, tactics where I'm going to cripple you now so that you're not going to have any chance or very little chance of getting yourself put back together and coming after us again.
I want to speak on 15 and 17.
Sure.
So 15, where it says, so David reigned over all Israel, and David administered justice and equity to all his people. So David administered justice and equity. David not only subjugated Israel's enemies, but also knew that his calling was to be just. His descendants did not always follow his example, despite prophetic exhortation, which is in Jeremiah chapter 22. Ultimately, the ruin of Jerusalem. But even before the fall of Jerusalem, there arose a hope for a righteous branch from the line of David, a king who shall deal wisely and shall execute justice and righteousness in the land. And jumping down to 17, where it says, and Zadok, the son of Ahitub, and Ahimelech, the son of Abiathar, were priests, and Sariah, the secretary. That part about Zadok, the son of Ahitub. Zadok was a Levite priest descended from Aaron through Eleazar. Although he was one of two chiefs under David, he became the sole high priest in Solomon's administration. From that time on, the Zadokite priests were one of the most important and influential priestly families. And where it says Ahimelech, the son of Abiathar, Zadok and Abiathar were David's priests. It was earlier reported that Abiathar, one of the sons of Abimelech, had joined David during his exile from Saul's court. It seems likely, therefore, that the names of father and son have somehow been reversed here. Abiathar was a descendant of Eli through a different Ahitub than Zadok's father. His removal by Solomon for having supported Adonijah's bid for the throne brought to fulfillment the judgment of the house of Eli.
Mm.
Yeah, because wasn't it just them two left after they went and they killed all the priests and they were the one got away?
That
If I remember correctly.
sounds right. Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting to see how early, because I mean, I know Ezekiel and other places we hear a lot more, and then, you know, when we get into Solomon's reign, we hear a lot more about Zadok. But it's interesting to see how early he's playing a factor, and it's like, no, that was what was established. It was lineage. Like you said, you read through all of that. That really does set that precedent of like there was only one line that went forward, so then there was no other possibility. There was only one line of lineage that successfully carried on.
Yeah, I think this is the first time we get the mention of Zadok in Samuel also. So that's I love that. You know, we're getting to that's going to be an early part of the story, and it's going to be carried all the way through the story as well.
Until the back of the book.
Yep. Oh, no, I found it right here. This was some earlier. In verse 15, Jonathan, it says, "And David reigned over all Israel, and David was doing right ruling and righteousness to all his people." So not only was he a good king, like obeying the father, but also he was really good to his own people. You know what I'm saying? And that's important because when we get into other kings down the road, other sovereigns, not so much. You know, we see a lot of greed. We see a lot of times where people are suffering. They actually go through dry periods of not even hearing the Torah, hearing anything to do with the Word of God, not even keeping any of the feasts and festivals. You know, it gets to a certain point where it's like enough's enough. You know, but David, that's why I love David. I think why he's such an important part of the history of this is because David not only was king, I believe he was a prophet. And when you read through the Psalms, I believe the Holy Spirit was speaking through him when he was writing the Psalms. You look at him as a priest. It felt like he was the only king of Israel at any point that actually carried a mantle that had multiple job descriptors on it. It wasn't just he was a sovereign, the ruler, but he also was an example of all the other things. And I think him taking care of his people, it says, right ruling and righteousness to all his people, is definitely the heart of the Father, is, taking care of the people.
Didn't he always divide the spoils with them? Or it's been mentioned several times, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wonder, during the time of David, at least, this early part, there was no temple, and that I know there was no tabernacle. They were kind of done with tabernacle days. So I wonder, when you look at some of the kings before Solomon in the temple, they were still found to be righteous. They were still required to keep feasts and festivals with or without the tabernacle. Before the tabernacle was established in Exodus, they were doing feasts and festivals.
Mm-hmm.
After the tabernacle days, because I don't know, did they keep it running after they got into the land and they split all the 12 tribes out and all that?
That's a good question. You technically don't need a physical building to do the atonement sacrifices and to do all the sacrifices, because we see that with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They didn't have a tabernacle, but they still performed the duties of the priest when they did their sacrifices and different things like that. Even with Noah, when Noah got off the boat and he did a sacrifice, built a pillar, did a sacrifice unto the Father, acting in the role of a priest. We see Job doing the same thing. Job has not got, that we know of, a tabernacle or a physical building, but he's doing sacrifices on behalf of his children, just in case they sinned. So we see that played over and over and over again. That's why with the whole Temple Institute right now, they talk about it was something, their whole goal is to build a temple. They don't have to have the temple to start up what they want to start up. All they need is the implements and the proper priesthood to do so.
Right. And that's kind of my point. It's, in our modern world, we have two different, well, I'm probably 30, but two like major lines of distinction is, oh, we can't do any of that because we don't have the priesthood, we don't have the temple. Or, oh, that was all nailed to the cross, we don't have to do any of that anyway because it's no longer effective. But all through, it seems like 80% of the Bible, 90%, there was no temple and there was no tabernacle. There was like all the pre stuff and then all the post stuff. So God expectation never changed. Like in this time right now with David, let's just say there's no official tabernacle, or whatever. Pick a time when there was no official tabernacle and there's no temple. The expectation was still there. The rules were still there. The commands were still there. God didn't say, well, since there's nothing set up, don't worry about it. And then after the 70 AD, he didn't say, well, now there's no more temple, don't worry about it. So it makes you really wonder, like, if all of our arguments in modern world are just kind of moot due to these facts. They, like, even, what was it, Hezekiah was like, oh, we missed the Passover. I don't know, let's just do it anyway. And the guy counted his righteousness and said, yeah, you didn't know any better. You didn't have the information. You tried your best. You had a really good heart. I'm going to give you a thumbs up. Even though technically you didn't follow the rules. You messed it up. Yeah. But I know what you were doing and why you were doing it.
He did pray to the Father if he would accept accept the way that they were. They were definitely not quote unquote clean to come before the Father to do these things, but the Father agreed to it.
But it's a really, I don't know, I hope it's something we can all kind of take home and start thinking about a little bit more of like, okay, cool, we don't have a temple. So neither did David. Okay, well, it's all nailed to the cross. Well, then what was Paul doing then? We have to, if we actually look at real biblical examples, these things are happening and occurring as if there's no distinction. There's not like a caveat. There's no, well, let's turn to Amendment 1 to see what the Bible has to say if the world looks like this, or if we lose that. David had the ark in a tent in another city for a while because he was afraid of what was going on. They didn't stop the world from happening. And there was an ark in the world at the time. There was one he could go get. There's the ark right there. They could literally go and do it. But yeah, it really just makes you see like all these priests were holy, all these kings. David's getting like the A+ times 10. He's like, he didn't go to the temple. He didn't go, do anything. Like he didn't say, well, there's no temple, so I don't have to worry about this.
Well, I'm assuming there had to have been some form of a place though for this thing to take place, because in the story when David shows up with and eats the showbread, that's only for the priest. So there was some type of structure. Oh yeah. For them to do these things. And so it may not have been quote unquote the tabernacle or the official Solomon's temple.
Right.
But they did have, I think they did their best in having a place, a building or some type of building to house, because you're going to have the elements just sitting outside, getting rain on the whole time.
Right.
So I think the priests at this point, until the temple is built, they're doing the best that they can with what they got. So again, when David shows up, they're making that showbread somewhere and they're keeping it somewhere. It's not out in the elements, but it's a good point that you're making, though, is that, the Father doesn't need those buildings for the things that get done and need to get done. For Solomon, he says, I'll let your son build me a place. I'm not even sure if that was ever even on the docket, man, of that being a thing, except that this is what they desired to do. And I think the Father allowed it to happen and gave them permission to do it. So, because it seems like all it ever caused was trouble down the road.
Right.
Eventually it ended up being a place of like a museum by the time you get to Yeshua's time, where it's not even operating in near the capacity that it should be operating in, because you've already gotten rid of all the legitimate priests, basically. None of them are there. And you're just shoestringing this thing along, making money with the guys selling stuff inside the temple area and not even doing anything that's proper anymore. I think that's why at some point guys kind of like, you know what? I think enough's enough. And so, by the way, we're not going to worry about this build anymore, because when my son does what he does, then there's going to be an indwelling of the Holy Spirit in my people, so that a portion of the Father's Spirit will actually be in us. It says, do you not know that you are a temple of the Holy Spirit? We are houses, living, breathing houses of the Holy Spirit. Where before the Spirit of God would descend down and hover above the mercy seat, he's saying now, because of what my son's done, now now you've now become as a temple. You be a living sacrifice unto the Father.
Right. And yeah, I agree. I don't think there was ever just like a hodgepodge. They were just meeting somebody's house. I think there still was, because the Levites weren't given land as an inheritance, but they were given a portion of each city to do priest duties. They were given a place. I think we did that in that questions where we did the Bible trivia. They had like 56 cities or 66 cities, some number like that. The Levites were given to still take care of their business. I guess I was just saying more of like the super official, like the table of showbread, the menorah, the brazen altar. That wasn't always a thing. But those are like the, you got to put the blood on the horns and you got to sanctify and do it. It didn't always happen in some super perfect orchestrated format where the veil was this and they had a certain amount of incense in the room, and it's just, there's more often than not in the Bible people are doing what's right without everything being in the crazy official capacity that we think it has to be in. And so in our world today, I think we're all too often looking for it must be A, B, and C, when God's like, I clearly showed you it doesn't have to be that. I mean, if it's there, then yes, utilize the building that I gave you, that I blessed you with. But if it's not there, that doesn't change the rules. That doesn't change the expectation. Yeshua didn't have Passover and had the temple walls. He just had it in some upper room, with him and his boys. It wasn't some magic, super duper thing. It was, hey, this was the rules. It was to meet together and have a Passover meal. It wasn't a piece of cracker and a thimble of juice.
I'm not even sure that I'll be honest with you, those little wafers taste just like you're eating straight up styrofoam.
Oh,
As I remember us doing that, I'm looking at that thing like, there is no way this is even bread at all. This is like literally styrofoam.
Yeah.
And then it has a line through it.
Yeah.
To help you crack it.
Yeah.
Like, it has to be broken. Remember to me, like.
Yeah, I know. Because they're so hard to break.
Yeah, and then you get stuck to the roof of your mouth, and you're like, all right, time to drink. You're like, no, it's still stuck.
You're looking for you're looking for the tray going by, get an extra little mini juice, take a shot. You're like, yeah. Anyway, I digress. All right, guys. If nothing else on that, we can head over to Genesis chapter 49 and 50. And what do we call that, Jonathan?
I forgot. Q&A. The QC, questions and context. So this is where you guys on YouTube and here in person can ask some cool questions. Bring in
It
some
better be cool,
points.
though.
Bring up some stuff that that's in Jubilees or Esdras or some other book that has some awesome points to add to it.
All right, I'll ask you.
Ask away.
All right, in 49, when he's going through each of the kids. And I thought it was interesting how Dan at 16 will judge, but he'll also be the serpent. I know about the serpent, but also the judge. I've never noticed that before. So.
Yeah, well, and we're talking about the serpent. Though small, Dan was a dangerous and struck unexpectedly to overthrow larger foes. The Danite Samson single-handedly struck the Philistines. That's what my note says about the serpent.
About Dan striking the Philistines. Is that what you said?
It says the Danite, Danite, Samson single-handedly struck the Philistines, which is spoken in Judges 13 through 16.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so what's interesting, you brought up Dan. So I'll just read that whole little section there because it's a little it's impactful. Like, man, what's Dan doing here? Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent in the way, a viper by the path that bites the horse's heels so that his rider falls backwards. I will wait for your salvation, O Lord. So you're kind of looking at that. You're like, whoa, hold on. What is he actually saying? Because it sounds like, you're going to be a judge, which, we think of judge. There's the good and bad side of that, like a righteous judge and then like a you're always judging, you're always in people's business, you're always, trying to be a little bit of a stink a little bit. And then you'll be a serpent in the way, not like a part of the way, or you're a member of the way, you're a follower of the way. You're in the way. You're you're literally causing people not to go where they need to go. And then you by the path. So now you're in the way, you're on the path. Every time we try to go somewhere, you're a problem. You're a snake in the road. Or as I finally make it to the narrow path, you're a snake there too. My goodness gracious. Yeah, stumbling block. And even if we get on the horses, you're going to cause us to fall back.
Yeah, but I wonder if that's a good thing, though.
You think so?
Because the reason why, if Dan, Miss Karen is putting here, Dan does mean judge. So I don't know if it means a judge in a bad way, or it means like I'm the enforcer of what is actually good. So when you come in that path, and let's say, I know that we have a negative outlook on anything that says serpent or snake or adder. It says adder in here. But we also got to remember that was a serpent that was put on the pole that the people had to look at with Moses that actually brought healing and restoration to them.
Yeah,
So I don't look at it necessarily as Dan. And if I'm wrong, guys online, help me out here. I'm just spitballing this. But Dan, I don't think that's always a bad thing. It says Dan rightly rules his people as one of the tribes of Israel. So he's a righteous judge. It says Dan is a serpent by the way, an adder by the path that bites the horse's heel so that the rider falls backwards. I have waited for your deliverance, O Yahuwah. And so I think that this is it, and it's in a good way. It's like I am going to administer justice as well, where maybe the horse rider, maybe the horses represent people that are invading or people that are coming in or whatever that entails. And so he's saying that Dan's going to be the righteous person there on the path to stop whatever that was about to take place. That's kind of how I'm looking at it right now.
All right. How about 14? Where it says, "From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel." Is that talking about Yeshua, or even though it's Joseph? But
Wait, hold on. What verse?
Where?
24. What did I say?
Yeah, I was like,
I was like,
Glasses and it's not helping.
Miss Karen real quick says he doesn't bite the rider. He basically hamstrings the horses. Those who go to war, power of beasts, are humbled. Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, so 24 says what?
From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel.
And that's talking about Joseph, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just wondering what.
Ask that question again. I'm sorry, I was trying to get stuff online.
It says, "From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel." Is that talking about Yeshua, or even though it's Joseph? Or I was just wondering about that. The stone
Israel's
of Israel.
defense.
Mean and strength are made strong by the hands of the mighty ones.
I think it's definitely giving that precursor and making that connection
Yeah, I think it's connecting to. Let me read this out loud in my brain.
out loud. In your
It
brain.
says in my brain, but his bow remained in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. Yeah, so I think this is definitely talking about Yeshua later on. I don't think it's calling Joseph that. I think the mighty one of Jacob. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. I mean, I know when we look at Joseph that, the correlation between him and Yeshua is like crazy.
Mm.
I mean, we could probably even, I think I've seen 40, 50 different, or not different, but 40 to 50 correlations between the two that, it's like, all the way down the life of Messiah, the life of Joseph. I think when it's talking about the stone, it says the stone that the builder rejected, that's Yeshua,
Yeah, and talking about the stone in Deuteronomy 32:4, it says, "The rock, his work is perfect, for all his ways are justice. A God of faithfulness and without iniquity, just and upright is he." So the stone, or the rock, is suggesting God's steadfast faithfulness and permanence. The term is common in the Psalms and other poetic passages. And so that's and it refers back to Genesis 49, verse 24. And my note refers to Deuteronomy 32:4. Talking about the stone.
Very good. And just real quick, Miss Cleveland put in here, we're talking about the snakes and all that earlier. She said non-poisonous snakes are a blessing to have around. They rid of the poisonous ones and rodents.
Oh.
That's why too, like when we living out here in the country for the past year, I'm not really good at identifying a snake and what it is, because there are some snakes that are fakers that'll puff up like they're a diamondback rattlesnake, but they're really not. But for the most part, I've learned, out here to live in harmony where most people want to take a shovel and cut their head off. I have a lot of acres here, so I just shoo them. Hey, there's been a couple by our building over here where we were moving stuff and I saw a snake. I was like, I don't know what you are, but I don't feel like it's fair to kill you because I'm going to have this fear over you. God placed you here for a purpose. Just move. Unless you become an annoyance or a problem and I find out you are poisonous, I may have to kill you. But for the most part, whatever snakes were over here, there was 2 of them. I just shoot them all, man. Say, go and get. And they just kept on going through the woods and moved on. And I never saw them again. So, but I think we're living in harmony with what God created. The snake's not evil. It's not, it's a good thing. They're good for the ecosystem. Now, if they want to make up a poison wants to make up home around my house, I'll remove you one time, but if you come back, that's a wrap. But
All right, so since we're back on snakes, I'm gonna go ahead and throw my opinion thought on
don't talk about Kyle like that.
this. So, even though we all went a slightly different direction, I'm still going with Dan here is not being spoken of favorably. A viper is a venomous snake for sure. So a venomous snake on the path is a no bueno. Causing somebody to fall backwards, I don't think there's ever any reference of somebody falling back and that being a good thing, or shrinking back. I mean, I know like you can fall. Generally, you fall forward when you're dealing with the guy. Like then I fell on my face. I fell on my face. I fell on my face. But when you see like the enemy or whatever, it's like you fall back. You're being judgment or trial or whatever. And the only other detail, and again, I'm not trying to cause any arguments or anything, but the only other detail in 18, it says, I wait for your salvation. That means you ain't saved, in my opinion. If you're waiting for somebody to get saved, then that means that they're not saved. So I just wonder if Dan had some junk going on in his life where it's like, no, you're still a part of the tribes. You still get to judge. You still got there's some positivity there. He didn't come in and just start berating him day one. I hate you. I hate your face. I hate everything about you. You're never going to win. It's, hey, you're a member and you're a part of the situation. All too often, though, you become a problem. And I really just wait for your salvation. I really can't wait till you get it all together. So, yeah, I've always had a harder look at Dan because of that. There's none of the other guys are like, oh, man, it'd be great if you were, had some deliverance or some salvation. Dan's the only one that gets that kind of that extra verbiage behind it. So, just makes me wonder. Some more stuff to look at, but I think that's still kind of leaning toward Dan's a problem. Not that was a positive.
Yeah. I'll reserve you the right to be wrong.
Oh yeah, I'm always ready for that.
I thought it was interesting at 31, where it goes and says that Leah was buried in the cave, and I know Rebecca died on the way, but still Rebecca was the favored wife, and she didn't get the good cave that everybody else got. That just something.
Yeah, but there was something, and I can't remember.
She was in Bethlehem.
Yeah, but there's something very special about where she was buried. So it wasn't like they just picked a spot and dead. That looks like a tree over there.
Oh no, I was just thinking about that. Especially
Yeah.
The double, was that the double cave?
Yeah, double cave. Yeah, they were blessed, man. They had the what's the Hilton of the caves. Oh no, we have a single, then we have a double.
Yeah, the double tree in and the double cave in.
There you go. Makes you wonder though where all that's at today, and if anyone's ever found it.
Right.
And then even recognize like if there's anything like a marker within that cave saying who they are. Woo, man.
Who knows?
I hope the father's probably like, no, I already gathered their bones. We're not letting that happen.
Right.
You imagine the money maker off of that one? Look what we found.
All of them.
This is
In
the
one
actual
spot.
bone. Can you imagine all the stupid people that would want to go there just to grave soak?
Mhm.
Oh, the bones of Abraham and Isaac. Let's lay upon this or whatever, or just get stupid with it, man. God already knew. That's why we have that thing about the angel contending over Moses' bones. Like God's like, I'm not giving no.
Right.
You're not having his bones, man. We're not having done after this.
Yeah, exactly.
And going to 50, it's so interesting to me that Israel or Jacob, had this huge funeral, and he was only there how long before he died? Like
17.
Yeah, I mean, they thought so well of Joseph to go and do that. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Well, when you literally save the world, I think you get a little.
Or the son that saved the world.
Exactly.
Or the father and the son that
Yeah.
saved the world.
Yeah.
You get a little notoriety, just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Yeah, Miss Karen said, "Look at the eyes of the snakes." I'm gonna tell you something, Miss Karen. I agree with Miss Cleveland here. She said that's what Bob had told Miss Cleveland to do. Like, look at their eyes. I don't want to get that close. I don't. Yeah, because they have a slit or they have more of a pupil. But yeah,
I want to see if that little fork.
The video you sent me about how cats were the same.
Yeah. Well, they have the same eyeballs, but yeah,
Oh, they do. Now that you said that.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Never thought of that.
So yeah, I don't want to get that close to one or examine them or yeah. I don't fear snakes, but I do have a very healthy respect for them.
Right.
Because even if it's not poisonous, if it bites you, it's gonna hurt.
Well,
Like,
they often squeeze you.
No,
Or bite you.
squeeze
Get a
you.
nice hug to do.
Yeah.
Something that this year, if you guys don't know, Anchor the Truth, we're going through Jubilees, and Jubilees has 50 chapters. That was pretty cool because 50 is the number of Jubilee, the first year of the Jubilee. And Genesis also happens to have 50 chapters. I did not know that growing up. I just knew Genesis was the first book. I didn't know how many chapters it had. I never really went from 1 to 50 all the way through. So I was like, it's very interesting that if Moses is the writer of both of these books, and they were both written around the same time for the same purpose, hey, both the books of beginnings, one was the counting of time and one was the story of creation, both have 50 chapters, both cover that same time period. It just was a very interesting detail and fact that I was like, there may be some more connections.
Might be why they call it the mini Genesis.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
But I mean, it could have been any chapters. It could have, they could have broken it up into 10 chapters and they'd be super heck long. They're like, what was the reason that it happened to have 50 for both of them? And then it made me wonder too, a little bit of like, we talk about reading plans and stuff like that. 50 is real close to 52. So if you're doing a chapter a week or whatever, you'd be pretty much finished in that year. And then but then that's starting to play into a whole bunch of just random math.
I wondered, like in 23, where it said, son of Manasseh were born on Joseph's knees. I take that too literal, but I guess that's adopted by him.
Mm-hmm.
Because
You talking about the boys?
I said it was,
Where's that at?
23.
Let me read the correct translation here and bring insight to you, my child. You said 23 or 50?
23, yes, sir.
It says, and Joseph saw Ephraim's children to the third generation, the children of Machir, son of Manasseh, who were also born on Joseph's knees.
Which is the same. Yeah, but
Mine doesn't say that.
what did you say?
The children also of Machir, the son of Manasseh, were counted as Joseph's own. And then it has a little note and it says, Hebrew were born on Joseph's knees. So I guess it's an either or kind of thing.
Well, this just kind of made me think about what was it where they would grab their thigh or whatever, and
Did the thigh covenant?
yeah, and on the knees, but I guess adopted because wasn't he adopted by him and he took the place the two?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It says, as it says, as if it was his own. So yeah, I wonder if that does kind of.
What do you mean?
Mine doesn't say knees. Mine says as his own. So I wonder if that's just giving you the answer.
Where are you at?
The end of.
But why would it? I don't understand. You're talking about adopting. This is Joseph's. Talking about Joseph adopting Ephraim's kids.
or Jake, or yeah, no,
It says, and Joseph saw Ephraim's children, which is his kids. This is his grandkids.
something I looked up said it was adopted by him. So did he adopt his kids? Or?
I don't know if that's going back to some type of idiom or something with the whole born on Joseph's knees. I don't know.
Here's something that says.
But this is his child though, and his grandkids.
The AMP version says the son of Manasseh were born and raised on Joseph's knees.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So like kind of like grandpa raised the kids.
I guess so. Let's see.
I think he just, I don't know.
KJV said we're brought up upon Joseph.
I think maybe it's some more of a patriarchal thing or something like that,
And you mean like on the like like when you're holding a kid, you like put them on your knees, so like you're literally raising them from the baby, like
Right.
that kind
Maybe.
of okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Like how it's like a woman on your hip or a man's on your knee because
Yep.
men don't do that thing. I don't got that extra space there.
You could eat a few more donuts, man.
I tried. I'm just built straight.
Well,
Yeah,
I wanted to go back to the beginning.
Chapter 1.
No, to verse 2,
Mhm.
where it says, and Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father. So the physicians embalmed Israel. An Egyptian practice designed to embalm, an Egyptian practice designed to preserve the body after death, and so to maintain personal identity in the afterlife. Embalming was not practiced in Israel. Here, the embalming preserved the body for transport back to Canaan. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, definitely think Joseph had some forethought on that.
Yeah, and the other, and this is like a side note. I've worked for a Jewish dentist for many years and had the privilege to go to, his parents. I'm trying to think of the word, memorial Shivas, and they bury him right away. They don't do embalmment. That is one of the reasons it's so quick. They don't do embalmment, the Jewish, even today. And I don't know if that goes for all different sects of Judaism, whether you're conservative, Orthodox, Hasidic, or whatever. And I thought, oh, interesting, because we had talked about it. Not to go on a rabbit trail. Side note. I had talked to my former boss and I said, is it going to be, a week with it? And he goes, a week? He was like, no, they don't let the body sit. I said, oh, because I didn't know.
Yeah.
So I thought it was interesting.
That's so interesting just to think of different cultures around here. Like my family is 3 days. I know other families it's a week.
For what?
For burial.
Yeah.
It's just so different, even not even putting that in account. Yeah. Just other Christians.
Tell you what, though, his father got like a king's burial, though, or a procession there, because when Pharaoh sends basically the chariots and all this, basically sends a whole entourage for Joseph to go bury his dad. And I think there's a couple of key reasons why. One is you're sending out your second in command outside of Mitzrayim. So I'm not going to send you out unguarded, unprotected. Mm-hmm. So he's like, it's because Joseph had great favor with this Pharaoh. And so I in the past, I thought about like, why is Pharaoh doing this? Is he making sure he's coming back? But I was like, no. I was like, if I was sending out my second in command, I mean, look at whenever the vice president or president comes into town. Man, they shut down 26. If he's coming down 26,
The interstate.
the interstate here, yeah, I-26. Every on-ramp and exit ramp, you'll see the state troopers and police officers go a long way down the road. Because I work for FedEx, so I know. I got caught up in that one time and saw where we had to reroute to go around it. But I was seeing the cars come flying up, and they're blocked. Whether it was an on-ramp or an exit ramp, all was blocked. Mm-hmm. And the only thing you have is that motorcade, and that's it. That's all you see is whatever's with that motorcade and wherever they're going. So it made me think of Jacob here and such a well send off for him and a blessing for him. And that, and here it says that the brothers, Joseph, all the elders, all these different, the only ones who stayed behind were basically the children. And I think some of the women or something like that. But, so Pharaoh made sure, hey, you're my number 2 guy. I want to make sure you're taken care of. So when you go there, you're going to have a mini army with you. So if anyone wants to act dumb, then we're going to play dumb, So.
Right. Well, and remember, there was still that group they just went to war with.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, we're still technically at war. We had to build the walls up because he's afraid of getting attacked.
Now that's further in the story. That's
So the war hasn't happened yet.
That's the
you're
Pharaoh
right.
that didn't know Joseph.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Which is actually, springboard into that. It's interesting how you leave Genesis and then Exodus, it's just like straight into the story. Hey, here's the 12 kids. Here's some stuff that happened, and a new Pharaoh that doesn't know Joseph, and it immediately goes into the oppression and all that kind of stuff. But I like that Jubilees, the stuff we've been reading recently, almost is like a fill in the gap time. It's like, yeah, Joseph died, Jacob died, and then it kind of goes into like fast forward.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now we're at Moses. Where Jubilees, it actually kind of gives you a lot of that middle ground of like why these things are happening, why this Pharaoh's upset, why they're treating the people crazy. Because you're like, what happened? They were the same people that were farming. They were in Goshen. It was like almost like North Carolina, South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
The Israelites were in North Carolina. What's that got to do with you? Why are you even bothering them over there? But they're like, well, but Virginia's acting a little crazy. So just in case, we need to make sure North Carolina and South Carolina are covered, and walls are built up. And then, well, I mean, you guys were relatives. You used to be over there in Virginia. You might want to jump in with them. So it's that Jubilees really, really built in like a lot of this for me because I really, growing up, I was just kind of like, I don't get.
Yeah, you're like when you're reading the account here in Exodus, you're like, why is this Pharaoh? What's his deal? Why is he wigging out so much?
It's like a flip of a switch, and you don't really get the time like difference,
right?
You get the 430 years, you get the oppression, you get the time in Canaan and Egypt, you get that stuff, but you don't get the why Joseph to Moses. Like, where's that gap? And then what's happening in that gap? You don't get any of that information that I know of. And
you see that they are a people group that is definitely blessed by the Father, that are basically having kids left and right. They're in the best part of the land. Like I've said this before, not only were they having kids, but even their animals were producing in very large numbers. Everything was blessed. You're blessed, man. Everything's good.
The other thing we don't get in here is that part where it says that there was no adversary. So I wonder if that's why the animals are producing. The people it's like, if you're living how you're supposed to and doing what you're supposed to do, you literally are going to look like crazy to the world. You're like, well, you got 14 kids and you're only 34. How did you pull this off? Like, hey, I'm talking every year, no problems, no pain, no issues. We all love each other. Hey, so-and-so's babysitting these kids, and then these guys are all off farming. It's just like everything's just happening and moving and grooving, where in your own individual families, you're like, well, we can't really afford a kid right now because we only have one bed. And they're like, hey, don't worry about it. The boys are coming. They're going to build you a house tomorrow to fit your new 12 kids. Where like in our world today, it's like, you got to do it on your own. You got to go get money. You got to make sure you have the right doctors. You got to all this stuff. Where if there's no adversary and everybody's just working together and it's all about joint unity and growth and just growing
like the Amish.
A little bit. Yeah.
To some degree.
Yeah. There's an extent of that where you're like, if you're just kind of doing what you're supposed to, things just happen. And you're not focused on, we need to go to war, or we need to build the army, or we need to have defense budget. Like imagine America, all the billions and billions of dollars. If we had no defense budget and we just took care of our people, what? The world would look like a whole nother place. Now, thank you government for paying my check. But, at the same time, when you look at that, they were just people living life. And then you take away the major sin issue of like, now I'm going to try, you got 12 kids, I got 10. I'm going to go rob you now. You know what I mean? Like nobody was doing that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to, I'm sure everybody had their doors open. Hey, you need some more milk? Go get as much milk as you want. I got 25 cows. Don't even care. Just get all the milk you need.
Everybody was literally fat and happy.
Right.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine that.
Which is why the Father had to send an oppressor in there to get them out. I guarantee you, because they're like, why would I leave? I've got it made.
Right.
We got the best land, the greenest grass. We're blessed. Like we are a people group that is doing really well. And then guys like, don't worry about it. So by the time I'm finished with them and with you, you're gonna be wanting to roll out.
Right.
So yeah. So it's just like, God has to do things sometimes to get our attention, to get us to move, and it may not be what we want, but it's the Father's hand going, nope. We need to shift in direction here. I need to get you out of here. Yes, I blessed you, but now I need you to move on because I have a better land flowing with milk and honey for you, a place of homes you didn't build and fields you didn't plow and all that good stuff. I have something better for you. You think this is good? Wait till you see what I got.
And I truly believe that because that, I can say it on a personal level that happened to me. When you become complacent, you just keep doing the same old thing. And for you to walk in your divine purpose of what God wants you to do and where he wants you to take the word and minister to people, sometimes he will make you miserable. Because he wants the best for you, but when I know it sounds contradicting, but make you miserable so you're not complacent, so he can move you because you're just so, everything's so good and I'll just stay right here. No, he'll do something to move you. I think of instances from in our experience from coming from the Sunday church when we had left the one big denomination to go to another church. I didn't want to go anywhere. I was fine. I was good. This is before we came into Torah, right where we're at. I was like, no, we got friends. Everything's all set.
Yeah.
No.
Everything's easy.
Of course, my husband was like, oh, we need to pray about this. And it was like, no, God's telling us to move. And then another instance for me, I'll just give you two, is with my work. I mean, I had planned to stay at my job till I'm 72. That was Vicky's plan. And God had other plans for me, for the season for now. And I was like, no, that's not my plan. That's the key word, everything back to me, I, me, my. No, that's not God's plan. So God, now I don't want to say disrupt, but he just changed everything. And I was like, okay, and it just sounds even to yourself sometimes, and definitely to others, like it's insanity. But if you are listening to God and obeying what he's saying, even if you don't understand it, God will bless you and he will give you the revelation and the understanding. And then when you walk in it, you're like, the light bulb comes on until if you want to say your next assignment, and that's where the faith kicks in. So all the things that we can quote and read and sing and pray, really hits the surface when it falls back on us, on our personal situation, whether it's job, family, health, whatever. And you're like, okay.
Yep.
So yeah, I see some of the comments in there with that says about being buried or or doing the traditional way of gathering the bones and all that. So have any of you guys ever thought about taxidermy at all? I'm just saying. Kind of hanging around a little bit longer, just put Grandpa Joe over on the couch.
A little speaker in there, you push the button like they do in the wax museum kind of thing.
Daddy loves you. Daddy loves you.
Yeah. So I'm kidding, but yeah.
So I have a question for the group, but especially for you, Pastor Joe. So when we see in Jubilees how everything was awesome, right? This is probably the best time in like almost all of humanity. I want to beg to say, like, other than when the kingdom comes, like, I don't think there's ever another time where it was like everything is awesome. Even though the world around was still a little bit crazy, everything for them was awesome. When they finally made it to the promised land, was it substandard to that? I mean, I'm not trying to be funny, but God's like, I have a better land for you, flowing with milk and honey. Everything is going to be awesome. And then they get there, it's like, it kind of seemed like the situation they had in Goshen was better. From my mental idea. Now I know God's plan's better and God's ways are better, and he had a whole nation he was trying to build, not a little small chunk in Egypt. He was trying to build the whole nation. So I get that, the fullness. But I mean, like, it almost seems like Goshen was better. Like when they get to Israel, it was like, there's giants here. We got to go fight all the time. Our people don't listen. And then, they got failure to launch. Joshua's like, go get your land. Stop huddling around me. Go away. Go take care of what God wanted you to do. Then they didn't kill it just seemed like Goshen was kind of like the A+. They got the Israel like, man.
Well, I think too, man, they delayed their entry by 40 years.
That could be a big part of it.
Yeah, they delayed their time getting there by 40 years. So you allowed the inhabitants of this land, and now you got 40 years of them having babies.
Mhm.
You know, I'm just saying. I think the land, when they sent the spies in, it says definitely the land does flow with milk and honey, and they bring back the super large cluster of grapes that 2 guys had to carry.
Good point.
So I think the land was ready, and it was very good. I just think that that part of that gets overlooked because when they get into the land, unfortunately, everything kind of starts off the way it should, and then it wasn't too far into the story where everything starts going sideways. And then when they don't, and here's the thing too, when they're not letting, one of the problems that the Father had with Israel also in the land was they didn't let the land rest.
Mhm.
So now I've given you the provisions, I've given you the land flowing milk and honey, and you've already known because I've already sat down with you as dad and said, hey, by the way, you need to let the land rest. Everything gets a Sabbath rest. And when you don't do this, you actually harm the land. You actually makes things not grow the way they're supposed to grow. And so there's a lot of factors into that. I think it started off really good, and because of the way they treat the land, and at some point, that's where the Father divorces the northern tribe. He said, look, I'm divorcing you out of the land. That's the only way this land's going to get a chance to rest. From all your stupidness, from all the wars, from anything else being done, I've got to give this place a rest so that it can recoup. And, what's funny is when you look at the state of Israel now, there's nothing appealing by the way that looks. To me personally, all I see is a bunch of rock. And I do see where over the years from the 1970s, there are people who went in there from the 70s and have grown groves of certain trees and done certain things. But when you look at, for me personally, I have nothing against Israel, by the way. But when I look at the land, it's not a land to me. It looks like I would say, oh, that's definitely flowing milk and honey. No, I see a very dry, arid place. I see there are patches of some greenery, but it looks nothing like what you would expect when they first went into the land and what it should look like.
Right.
So
I wonder if it's a little bit of like the land itself. What, like you said, I mean, I didn't even think about the grapes and stuff. I mean, they showed proof this land is amazing because I'm sure they had regular people grapes in Goshen, then they had mega grapes in Israel. Like everything was already prepared to be the mega version, the super blessed version. So it's the people that changed, not the land or the scenario. So like if all the people are together in one accord, that's what made that place special. And everybody was taking care of each other. You get to the desert and they immediately start disobeying God. They start disobeying Moses. They go to war when they're not supposed to. They're getting thrown into pits. They're getting, the first bird flu. They're having all this nonsense. They're getting bit by snakes. It's like, okay, after a while, you guys are the problem. The land was awesome, but you showed up with stupid. So then, yeah, things went downhill quick. But that's a good point. So what God, because I don't want to say God's lying, but it was like, dude, like Goshen was way better when you actually break them down one for one. But the guy was like, no, it was set up. You just were dumb. And you brought more stupid here.
And the thing too with Goshen is, I don't know this, but I wonder how large that geographically, how large the area was, and if it could actually sustain. Because if they were growing at that point of let's say they were 1.2 million people at this point, that's a lot of people,
right?
And if the land at some point you're going to consume that land,
right?
And I think that's where the Father's kind of like, okay, now everything's in perfect timing. Now it's time for you to move to a much better place where you're going to have some stretching out room and, and be blessed. At least that was the intention, was to be blessed. So,
how the people always get in the way, right?
Yeah. Miss Karen, let's see what she said. You were talking about children. She's been considering fostering. Yeah, I think being a foster parent's awesome. We're loaded with grandchildren right now, so we basically are fostering. We've been very blessed with our grandbabies. Let's see. Fariba asked, "What about fruit and nut trees? Do they need to rest?" I don't remember exactly how that's supposed to go, but I think the way it looks like when you allow the land to rest is you don't go in and you don't cut anything back. You don't harvest anything from the land. You literally let it go through its thing. So there's no cutting back. There's nothing. And if I'm not mistaken, you guys help me on the line if you know those who are growers. I'm not a grower. I'm trying to be a grower. I'm learning to be a grower. But it talks about letting things just basically do their thing and don't touch any of it. And then the next year, or that next following year, you can go in and then reassume. But I've heard testimonies of people who've let the land rest, and they said, "Man, our crops grew like crazy."
Mhm.
You know, we let it do what God designed it to do. And it also helps with the soil, putting nutrients, because if you don't harvest any of that fruit, any of the stuff, and it all goes and hits the soil and it rots basically. But that rotting process is good because now you're putting nutrients back into the soil that it probably needed.
Right.
So anyway, guys, I enjoyed it. Thank you so much for joining us for our Bible study. We'll have Miss Karen says, yes, every 7th year brings right balance of nutrients and bugs to soil, plus fruit trees need cooling hours in winter to be able to flower. That was good stuff. Appreciate you guys. So guys, we're going to have our sermon here in about an hour, about 5-ish as always. I will be talking today about what does it mean to be baptized in the Holy Spirit. So look forward to that and your comments and all that good stuff. If you can't check it out in the next hour, it's recorded. So please give it a look at when you can. So blessings to you all. Thank you again so much for being with us. Look forward to seeing some of you guys here in just a little bit. Shalom. Oh, real quick, we'll let Jonathan pray us out. I forgot about that.
I was like, that's fine.
No prayer.
No prayer.
Go ahead.
All right, Joe, thank you for this day. Thank you so much for being sovereign, for being the Most High, for never leaving your throne and always being in control. I just thank you for these stories that we get to read in the Bible. And I just pray that we look forward to stories like Goshen, where we all come together, where we all are loving on each other. As Yeshua says, the world will know you are mine because your love for one another. And so there's so much in these stories we read today that are making huge connections between Jubilees and the Old Testament and New Testament. And all of them seem to be saying the same thing, that you're in charge. We're supposed to follow your will and your ways. And when we love each other and take care of each other, things will be so awesome we won't know how to contain it. So I just thank you for who you are and who you'll continue to be. And I pray that we take some sober looks in the mirror to be those people that you call us to be at the end of the day. Pray all things in your son's holy name, Yeshua. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Blessings to everybody. Shalom.